The final annual tradition of the Iron Bowl is now over. The Auburn versus LSU game ends in the final result of 48-18. The Tigers will not see each other again on an annual basis going forward, as far as we know. We're going to have to break down and have a little bit of post-game therapy session about what just happened, what we witnessed from the Auburn Tigers. All that coming up here. Our comments and your reactions on this show coming up right now. War Eagle Auburn family, War Eagle E2C Network family, thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay, we appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, spending some time being a part of our little family within the Auburn family. As you are coming into the stream, do help us out this evening by making sure that you let us know where you're watching from, your city, your state. If you're international, you can do that as well. All of those things are extremely helpful to let us know who's here and to help the show get off on a good foot, a much better foot than the Auburn offense at times tonight. So, and the team in general. So do those things for us if you can. It is a humongous help. And of course, if you feel like we've earned it, please do make sure you smash that like button. It's always very much appreciated, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on Facebook, all the other places that we broadcast this stream to. Obviously, that is something we would really appreciate if you feel like we have earned it. On this live stream for you has been the case after all of our football games. We get together and we have a little bit of discussion as I get my little cue things lined up there. Thought I had them already. I didn't. As we get together after each game and kind of talk about what just happened. Sometimes it's in celebration, and for the last 3 games, it's been a post-game therapy session. Auburn coming off a bye week. I'd hoped to put together a little bit of a game plan and a strategy going forward that could be a little bit more successful, albeit against one of the toughest in the SEC, especially in their place in Death Valley. Auburn was not able to beat or even really muster hardly much of a fight against the LSU Tigers, give or take a few moments here or there. Losing by the score of 48-18. And as I addressed at the beginning of the show, the very last time on an annual basis, the Tiger Bowl will be played. So we could not get a streak going in Baton Rouge, much like they did for the longest time when that was broken under Brian Harsin. They will take the last one in this series. So we will have to wait for revenge at least 2 years. We'll see how much longer it's going to be after that fact with all of the SEC schedules that are going in. All right, so this is where we move into the show where I really want to hear from you all. I want to also stress this, and I feel like I have to say this after every single loss these days, that sometimes if you want to get hurt on this show, maybe don't just be a one note of complaining about things. I want to hear what you're worried about, what you're concerned about, what you're frustrated about. But the same token, let's not just be here just to complain about things, because there are a few things in this game that we can take away and talk about on some positive note. One of those being the fact that we got to see quite a few players that we have not gotten to see ever in quite some time. Can we just say, holy Brandon Frazier, if you're in the Conquer Club Discord, you know, I was using that a lot this evening. It was quite an interesting night for certain players out there that we didn't get to utilize a whole lot. And frankly, when you're reeling and trying to figure out what your identity is, what you can do to be successful going forward, why not, right? Give everybody a try. And I know that's going to stir some people up in the quarterback side of that conversation, but here we are. So we can go through a lot of the stats and stuff, and we will, but obviously want to kind of take cues from what you all want to discuss and some conversation pieces around that. I hope when I say that we want to be even balanced about this, you all don't think that I'm pleased or happy with what I saw on the field tonight. I'm not in any way. It is absolutely horrible, absolutely awful. Let's see here. And again, if you want your comments brought up tonight, obviously make sure that there's something that you would want to be read to the person that you're writing them about. So there you go. Elliot says, at the start of the season, I had us going 8-4, 9-3, but I guess I was wrong. A little bit of hyperbole there, Elliot, in my opinion. You are reacting to a part of the season that we knew was going to be the toughest part. And if you walked through the beginning of the season, like a lot of us did, knowing that you are likely going to not come out of this 4-game stretch with getting one win out of this 4-game stretch would be a great thing. But unfortunately, that we're down to our last opportunity to do that tonight. You've got a good opportunity against Ole Miss. It's your place where you showed that you could play against the best and compete. But when you go to places like College Station, we go to places like Baton Rouge, you are going to struggle. And look, we don't know how the rest of the season is going to shake out, but I understand the feelings tonight of frustration because I am very frustrated as well. Corey says we couldn't do anything against one of the worst defenses in the SEC. Yeah, I understand the frustration there too. But again, we'll talk about context with our emotions and our feelings about things. The context missing from that is we're playing in Death Valley, and we've seen that for whatever reason, our quarterbacks, our offense does not do well on the road at all, especially against a place like Death Valley. So you could be the worst one in the world, but that's just a tough place to play overall. Bruce says, unfortunately for us, we have hardly ever beaten LSU. Well, Bruce, I don't know how long you've been watching Auburn football. I have been watching at least most of my life. We've beaten them a whole lot. So not of late, but a whole lot in our history. Thomas is usually really good in his insights. So let's see what he's saying. That was rough. We knew it was a rebuild year, but goodness, we didn't think it was going to be this rough. But we have to take our lumps and move forward. Unfortunately, I think that this is the right way to think about this. And that's not resigning to losing a bunch more. That's just understanding what's taking place here. We made a decision several years ago to change coaches, made a wrong choice, and it sets you back, which was my fear from the get-go. So here we are today. I heard a lot of this evening. Matt had to turn the game off, couldn't take it anymore. And I think this is one of those games where that's a very common narrative. And it's not that I fault anyone for doing that. I hope that you would stick it out with your team regardless. So I'm not trying to, pinpoint you as a bad fan or anything like that, or anybody who did that. But I would hope that you could stick it out your team. Did I watch fervently every part of the second half? Absolutely not. But obviously stick out with your team as much as you can. Tyler with a positive comment. Jeremiah Cobb's future is a bright one. He does seem to be a very talented, just athlete in general, but obviously running back. We've been utilizing him a lot in speed sweeps, getting him out with the ball in his hands out in open field in the flats, and little swing routes out there. That's obviously his bread and butter right now. It'll be exciting to see what happens as his role continues to increase, because I believe he's played in every game thus far, at least seen a snap. If not, I'm pretty sure he's burned his red shirt. So it looks like we'll be seeing him the rest of the season. So if you're looking for positives on the year, you're going to get to see Jeremiah Cobb a lot more, and he's obviously going to contribute in a big way. Andrew says, looking forward, do you see us winning 3 more games to become bowl eligible? I absolutely do. Think there is plenty on the table for Auburn to take, especially when you consider you've got a lot of games left at home, still a lot of time to do all that. So I wouldn't start fretting that in any way. So we're going to delete that comment right there because that's just stupid. Sometimes, no, Kyle, don't go there tonight. Don't do that. Don't do it. Let's see here. What else? Bruce says, I still don't blame Freeze. What's going on goes back several years. I blame Malzahn, Harsin, and even that frog Leith. It goes back that far. No, we're all just looking for scapegoats at this point. We made a decision to fire a coach when we didn't need to fire them because there was not a eligible right decision. And this is what happens when you do that. And people don't want to hear that, but that's the facts. It's kind of the way it's laid out right now, folks. But let's try to talk a little bit about the game if we can. I know some of y'all don't want to, but we're going to anyway. Jalen Hurts fan says, how nice of them to keep their starting quarterback in the game. Coach Kelly would have felt real funny had he gotten hurt. Now that I think about it, that is a good point. He did stay in there a lot longer than you probably should have in this situation. Can we just take our hat off to Jaden Daniels, though? He's legit. He's a great athlete, great player. I want to commend our defense, though. Um, they've continued to show these quarterbacks that they come up against with very low interception rates. They get one on them every single time. Now, maybe you say that the Jaden Daniels interception wasn't necessarily his fault. He did try to put it into a tight window, and it was a great play made by Jalen Simpson, who then caused the deflection, which opened it up for DJ James. So you almost want to kind of give him like half a point of an interception just because of that play alone, and big on him for being hurt and being able to come in and play this week because obviously we needed him. And so that's a kudos, and it's a hat off to Jaden Daniels that he's such a great player, but even a hat off to this defense for being able to get an interception on a guy like that. So they've definitely got a great player over there. Paul says, ask the question, use Garner or wait for Walker White. I'm not the coach. I'm not paid the big bucks. So my opinion and our opinions don't matter on that. If I don't know how many times we have to say this, I'm not saying this like negatively towards you, Paul, but we go through this every year. If it's not Bo Nix, it was TJ Finley was the one on the other side. If it wasn't TJ Finley, it was Robbie Ashford. Now then it was Peyton Thorne is the answer. Then it was Robbie Ashford again. And so then it'll become when we play Robbie, Holden Garner is the answer. And when he's not the answer, it'll be Walker White. So if the player that's going out there at the quarterback at the starting position, the coaches feel that's the person that's best going to give us a chance to win. And sometimes that means a very little chance, as it appears to be. So to answer your question, it doesn't matter. To be honest with you, there's a lot more going on with this offense than just the quarterback play. Let's see here. I was singing a song because it's a lot of the same comments here, trying to get to some of these things. Paul says, on a positive note, our running backs all ran hard, smart when used. It did feel like, let's go look at some of these stats over here. Look at total yards. Total yards tonight, Auburn 293. It felt like 250. 293, almost eclipsed 300. Folks, we passed 100 passing yards on the game. In fact, we eclipsed our rushing yards, which I don't know if that says a lot about our rushing attack tonight. 154 passing yards, 139 rushing yards. I thought we had more rushing yards than that, but we did not. Jeremiah Cobb is your best rusher on the night, 10 for 69 yards, along with 13. Peyton Thorne, 5 of 27. Brian Batiste, 6 of 20. Robbie Ashford, 5 of 19. Jarquez Hunter, man. It is interesting what is going on with Jarquez since obviously having to sit out the start and then us just not being able to provide much of any room for him / opportunity. So I just don't, something's off in the whole running game. And it is more than just the running backs or one particular player. It's the offensive line, it's the play, the schemes, all that stuff. It's just, I did not anticipate the run game being this bad or this, it's not even bad. It's just mundane. It's lackluster. And that's not a reflection on one player or anything like that. It's just kind of mundane. It's really what it feels like. Stan points out if Robbie is in, we were running. How hard is that to figure out? And that's kind of what I saw someone make this comment on, I think it was X, Twitter, whatever, tonight, and saying, we just look different with Robbie in there. I mean, in his or her, I don't remember who it was. Their obvious point there was, we just look like a better offense. It's like, not necessarily. I mean, we look more one-dimensional one way or the other when you put one in versus the other. So everybody's lamenting the 2 quarterback system. I get it. I don't necessarily like it. There's a reason it's happening. They're not trying to sabotage us, folks. It's just we don't have a lot of weapons. Yeah, that one's that one's just we're not going to be addressing weird comments tonight. No one's afraid of our passing game. I agree with that. There's not a lot to be there, but there were some bright spots tonight. Obviously, Brandon Frazier being one of them, being especially utilized by Robbie Ashford. That was an interesting thing tonight. He gets not only a deep pass over the middle, but he gets a touchdown and he gets a 2-point conversion. And both the touchdown and the 2-point conversion were essentially the same thing, it seemed like. So, got to give your hats off to Brandon Frazier. I think he's probably your player of the night if you're going to give one to Auburn, simply because of how interesting it was that we were talking about him. Let's see. So load up and stop the run. So again, folks, I'm trying to get some of y'all's comments on here, but a lot of it is the same thing over and over again, just a lot of like negativity too. And so we're not going to just kind of continue to do some of the same thing. So if you got a original thought as opposed to just complaining about something, I'm not trying to be rude. I want to get some of y'all's takes and stuff on here, but I want to get to some stuff that's maybe a little bit more productive into the conversation. And it's kind of hard to sift through a lot of that tonight. Corey's asking if will we get any commits next week? I have no clue. I haven't even looked at the list the next week. I hope so, because I was thinking about that tonight, actually, that we haven't had a lot of momentum in the recruiting area as of late. And it would be something to kind of take the sour taste of what's happening here right now. Okay, let's look at some more stats. Maybe that'll spark some conversation, things of note. Peyton Thorne on the night, 12 for 23, 102 yards, barely squeaks the 100 yards himself, 3 for 4, 52 yards from Robbie Ashford. Obviously, if you just kind of look at that alone, Robbie was better passing tonight and fewer opportunities. And to someone else's point earlier, you know what's going to happen. Robbie comes in the game, but he's still pretty effective with it when he comes in the game. That's the reason why you continue to put him out there. You know, a lot of people are making the point, why don't we just let him go full board with it? I don't know. Obviously, there's a reason. Can't figure it out either, but they're paid the big bucks. I'm not. Receiving tonight, here's everybody who got the ball. And you're going to hear some familiar names here, but you're also going to hear some names that you've maybe heard before, some that you haven't, that are being utilized more. Brandon Frazier, we've talked about him, 3 for 52. Jay Fair, 3 for 36. Jarquez Hunter, 3 for 7. Oh, did I read that correctly? Yes. Interesting. Camden Brown, 2 catches for 27 yards. Caleb Burton, 2 catches tonight for 11 yards. Malcolm Johnson, nice to see him back in there, as many injuries as he's had, 1 for 13. And then Rivaldo Fairweather, 1 for 8. He probably should have had a few others. He had one bad throw that he had towards him. But they made up for it the next round. And I did like that exchange between Peyton Thorne and Rivaldo Fairweather, because we've seen that they've had a pretty good connection over the past couple of games. And when he overthrew a target like that, he immediately looked at him and said, "It's my bad." And then the next play made it up for it. So I like that kind of taking ownership of the situation. And yeah, I like the vibe that I feel between the two of those guys, him and Jay Fair as well. We're kind of missing that third guy, though. If Peyton Thorne could find that third guy in that equation to really step up, who is it? I don't know. Maybe some of these new guys that we've been talking about. Matt C points out that we gave up 500 yards. If you'll remember back to our, I don't know how many of you were here on our prediction and preview show, we talked a lot about looking at what was allowed by each team, how many yards per game each team typically got. Kind of the benchmark we set for Auburn to win this game in Baton Rouge, they had to keep LSU right around 400. I think I even said if they get barely over 400, I think Auburn could have a chance to win. But if they start pushing further beyond that into what they were averaging normally, then it's going to be a problem for Auburn. 563 yards tonight, 325 through the air, 238 rushing tonight. You know, honestly, that's probably the bigger frustration for me is the rushing game for them. Diggs gets 18 carries, 97 yards. Jaden Daniels, 11 for 93. So both of them almost a clip 100 yards tonight. You kind of knew Jaden Daniels was going to get his yardage because he was well protected and then was going to find opportunities to kind of slip through and get those big runs that he's known for. But I had hoped that we would had done a little bit better rushing, maybe kept them below 200, which would have maybe made it seem a little bit better, but not by much. Corey, yeah, Brandon Frazier is 6'7". He's a behemoth of a man, an absolute behemoth of a man. And it frustrates me that we haven't seen him as much. So that's why I was so pleasantly surprised tonight. It's the highlight of the night for me, Brandon Frazier getting utilized the way he was. That's why he's my player of the game. Stan thinks that the defense checked out in the third quarter. I don't know if they checked out, but I think it's kind of like we saw a lot with the 2019 team. Remember that great defense when they just, especially the LSU game, they had held them and held them and held them and held them. And that was a great LSU offense too. And then the offense just wasn't give support. And then it just kind of let loose. That's kind of what's happening with this defense. I think they surprised us a lot at the beginning of the year about how they were the strength of this team. And they are, but they can only be that way for so long. So I feel like some of the flack that they are getting, maybe in some areas, is not necessarily altogether their fault. So checking out, I disagree with, but being deflated, yeah, very much so. And W, good to see you. War Eagle from North Carolina. Still great to be an Auburn Tiger. Trying to remember patience is needed with a new coach, as frustrating as it is with times like these. I 100% agree. I don't think there's much more I can add to that one. From one top offense in the nation to the next, back-to-back weeks. Why must the SEC do this to us? Well, I wish that it was some conspiracy theory to say that they were doing something to us, but they're not. And it's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, to quote, not Ron Burgundy, but was Bruce Almighty. Bruce, I guess it was his name from that particular. That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And yes, the good thing is you've got the home game coming up next. And it's going to be a fun atmosphere at night on a fall day and evening. I know we're all frustrated tonight, but if you can make it to Auburn this weekend, you need to be there because it is going to be a fun weekend. Remember, folks, we can still have fun even in frustrating seasons. We found a way to do it last year. Stan, you got a positive thought tonight, buddy? Have you noticed we make teams look better? Trying to think who we made look better. I actually think we make teams look worse, to be honest with you. We made Georgia look worse than they seem to be. LSU, we knew they are who we thought they were. Cal would probably be a good argument for you there, but that one, so much context is lacking from labeling that as making them look better. UMass, we handled business. Sanford, we handled business. Texas A&M, I think a lot of people underestimated them to some degree. So this is a weird football year too. Has anybody picked up on that yet? Like, there's people talking about this is the repeat of 2007 where everybody was getting beat all the time. And I don't know that it's exactly like that year, but there's a lot of upsets and just people getting beat left and right. It's a weird year. It is a weird year. Matt says, don't think the D checked out. We just have no depth. Offense had -3 yards to LSU's 150. By the third quarter, our D was worn out. Offense had -3 yards. You're talking about like the first quarter? Interesting. GA lost Bowers today. I missed that completely. Well, not that I wish ill will on anybody, but my goodness, I wish that had happened. I wish that he would have not been able to play 2 weeks ago because we would have a win over number 1 Georgia. So, yeah, I don't think that we have made people look better than they actually are. I would actually think it's more so the case the other way. But anyway. All right. We haven't talked about a little bit of defensive stats. We'll start wrapping it up here because I know most of y'all are done discussing this one tonight. Eugene Asante is your leader again with 12 tackles. So if you were at our preview show and predicted Eugene Asante, you are correct. DJ James is right behind him, and Elijah McAllister with 6 total tackles. Remember, I told you if we had a leader, which we didn't, but someone high up there in tackles that was a defensive back that was going to concern me. DJ James is your second, tied for second leading tackler. Donovan Kaufman as well, Zion Puckett. You see? Defensive backs making too many tackles means too many completions and too many players getting into the secondary on run plays and things like that. Pretty much everybody else is exactly the same there. A lot of DBs are up there. Marcus Harris had a good play tonight. I can't remember what was it. I think he grabbed Jaden Daniels from behind when he was slipping away. Marcus Harris has been making a big play here or there every single game, but he hasn't been like just an outstanding defensive lineman throughout the whole game, but he's definitely there to make a big play when you need it, and I like that. So I hope he can continue to progress. All right, what else? Any other storylines from this game that y'all think are worthy to talk about that you want to discuss? Anything that piques your interest about what you saw, things that you'd like to see more from the team, things that you don't want to see? I think that's probably the easier thing to say tonight. Your hat goes off to probably DJ James tonight and Brandon Frazier as your players of the game. And obviously, a lot of discouragement goes home tonight as well. So let me give you guys, as we kind of round out our show, take some final commentary at the end, what we've got coming up for you this week. Sunday evening, tomorrow. Well, actually, yeah, tomorrow, still today. Episode 54 of the Auburn Experience podcast, Sports, Culture, and Family. Austin and myself will live record that at 9 Eastern tomorrow. Hope you can join us. Would love to have you be a part of the show. It's a fun little time. We talk with you guys a little bit before and after, so please do join us if you can. And remember that Wednesday night is always Auburn Family Night, 8 Eastern time. You can call into the show. Would love to hear some perspectives, and let's talk some of these things out. Some of y'all that got a lot to say, especially negative, call in and let's talk about it. Let's put a voice to some of those comments. I want to hear some of them. Let's talk about them. Stan says, I would love to see one quarterback. Well, who's going to be that quarterback then? Because if you run Peyton, you're going to, be more pass heavy. And there's going to be frustrations that come with that, probably. If you run Robbie, we're going to be one-dimensional that way, at least from what we've seen thus far. Now, Robbie, I will say, continues to give me a little bit of hope that he's progressing as a passer, so I wouldn't be so unopposed to giving him more of a look. And then, everybody's favorite topic, that the grass is always greener on the other side with the quarterback that's not being played. So, Holden Geriner, however you pronounce his name. I love that we're giving love to the punter because, my gosh, we got to give love to someone. He does continue to play well. Here's the reality of it, though, folks. Every single year, not every single year, but a lot of the years, the Auburn punter, even if we're a good team, it does outstanding work and then gets like jilted at the last second in the Ray Guy Award. Was it like Stephen Clark 2 years in a row got beat out and finished second both times when he was clearly the better punter? Oscar Chapman is a beast, not Chapman. He is an animal and from the land down under, and he is a good punter. I think a lot of people will look at that punt that was really high early, I think it was early in the second half, and thought that was a bad punt, but no, that was about keeping it up in the air to keep their athletes from getting a return off. Because there was a couple times I think that one kick return they had where they got pretty far down the field. LSU may not be the LSU of old, but there's still plenty of talent there, as we saw tonight, because it is tough to beat a team that just that talented. And as their depth is coming along, It is just tough to win that sometimes. So I think we have hit a little bit of offense. We have hit a little bit of defense and a little bit of special teams tonight. We have lamented. We have had therapy session. We have dived into about as much as we can. And folks, I know you're frustrated. I'm frustrated too. All I can tell you is you got to hang in there, realize the context of what we're operating with, that we made a decision 3 years ago to change coaches when there was not a candidate that would have sufficed. And we chose one that was clearly a bad fit. And because of that, we fell further down a hole and fell further into recruiting. And here we are. So it's going to take a little while to get back up to the point where Auburn should and can be respected once again. So for now, we're going to put a cap on this reaction show. As much fun as I'm sure as it was for you all. But hope you can join us throughout the week here at E2C Network, here on YouTube, everywhere else. Would love to talk with some of you a little bit more as we let this one go to the wayside and we look forward to the next game against Ole Miss. Hope to see you around here this week. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. And thank you for being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Until I talk to you again, War Eagle.